What you'll learn in this video is simple, but it's the difference between people who try Etsy and people who actually make money on Etsy. You'll learn why success on Etsy isn't about talent, luck, or even creativity. It's about building systems that quietly work for you, even when motivation fades. Let me start with a moment that almost every Etsy seller remembers, that first sale notification. It's small, just one order, but it hits differently because it's not just money, it's proof. Proof that someone somewhere in the world saw something you made and decided it was worth paying for. That moment is why Etsy keeps pulling people in, and yet most shops never get past that early spark. Here's the core idea we'll keep coming back to today. Etsy's success is not about passion alone. It's about clarity, systems, and repetition. Everything in this video, every lesson, every example builds on that single insight. As we open on the first slide, notice the framing. Turn creativity into income. Build a shop that works while you sleep. That's not hype. That's a design goal. The question isn't, can you sell on Etsy? The real question is, can you build something that doesn't collapse the moment you lose energy? Now, setting the stage, let's map the journey. This is where the roadmap slide matters. Etsy works today because the platform already solved the hardest problem in business: traffic. 96 million buyers show up with intent. They're not scrolling for fun, they're searching to buy. That changes everything. Which brings us to the bigger opportunity. Etsy isn't Amazon. You're not competing on speed or price. You're competing on meaning, on story, on relevance. And that's why now, right now, is such a powerful moment to build. When markets get crowded, clarity becomes the advantage. This is where we unlock the first quest level, Insight Architect. From here on, every slide is about designing before doing, strategy before hustle. Let's begin with what most people rush past: niche research. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Sellers don't fail because they aren't creative enough. They fail because they try to sell to everyone. And when you sell to everyone, no one feels spoken to. The most successful Etsy shops don't ask, what do I want to make? They ask, what problem does my buyer want solved? And how does that show up emotionally? When you narrow your niche, something strange happens. Competition stops feeling threatening and starts feeling informative. Reviews become research. Gaps become invitations. You're not guessing anymore. You're responding. As we build on that idea, notice how clarity naturally wants structure. That's where the storefront comes in. Your shop foundation isn't decoration. It's trust infrastructure. Before a buyer reads your description, they scan your banner. Before they check your price, they glance at your photos. Humans decide emotionally and justify logically. A polished shop quietly answers the buyer's unspoken question. Is this safe? Is this real? Is this worth my attention? This is why branding matters even at the smallest scale, not because it's pretty, but because it reduces friction. Now let's shift focus to the heart of Etsy, the product itself. Etsy buyers are not buying objects, they're buying identity. They're buying gifts that say, I see you. They're buying things that feel personal, intentional, human. That's why personalization performs so well, not because it's trendy, but because it creates emotional ownership. When someone sees their name, their date, their memory in a product, the decision shifts from should I buy this to this is already mine. As you move through this slide, ask yourself, what feeling does my product give someone 5 minutes after they open the package? Now comes the part many creatives resist, but it's non-negotiable: visibility. Etsy SEO isn't about gaming an algorithm. It's about translation. You're translating what your buyer types into the search bar into a product they didn't know existed 5 seconds ago. Here's a useful mental shift. Stop writing listings like a creator. Start writing like a buyer in a hurry. What words would they use? What problem are they trying to solve quickly? Once you see SEO as empathy instead of math, it becomes far less intimidating and far more effective. Shifting from being found to being remembered brings us to marketing. The fastest growing Etsy shops understand one thing: Etsy traffic is rented. Audiences are owned. Short-form video, email lists, and simple content aren't about becoming famous. They're about familiarity. People buy from shops they recognize, from sellers who feel present. You don't need to be everywhere. You need to be consistent somewhere. And this naturally leads us to the final Insight Architect concept: systems. Here's where many sellers burn out. They confuse growth with effort, But real growth feels quieter than expected. It feels like fewer decisions, fewer manual steps, more repeatable actions, print on demand, automation, templates, data reviews once a week instead of emotional reactions every day. This is how Etsy shifts from a side hustle into leverage. Now, as we transition into the next quest level, engagement enchanter, the goal changes. We're no longer adding ideas, we're anchoring them. So let's slow down and what actually moves the needle. Not endless brainstorming, not constant redesigns, but three things repeated well: niche clarity, systems over motivation, and consistency that compounds. That brings us to a quieter slide, the reflection slide. If your shop really worked, what would it change? Not just financially, but structurally. Your time, your stress, your choices. Would it give you margin, options, confidence? Sit with that for a moment. Because the goal was never just an Etsy shop. The shop is a vehicle, which leads us to the closing idea. You don't need perfect conditions. You don't need permission. You don't need a viral product. You need a starting point, a system, and the willingness to adjust. That's it. Etsy rewards builders who stay curious longer than they stay emotional. People who treat their shop like a small experiment, not a referendum on their worth. If you want a shortcut, it's this: design your system before you chase motivation. And if you want help doing that, the PDF link below breaks this entire framework into actionable steps you can use immediately: checklists, prompts, and planning tools you can return to anytime. If this video helped you think more clearly about building income online, subscribe, hit the thumbs up, and turn on notifications so you don't miss future breakdowns like this. Small steps, repeated daily. That's how ordinary shops become extraordinary businesses. Download the PDF. Start today.